welcome to the wonderful Oulton Park circuit. We are here today for the first round of the Lame Sheeps Racing's British Touring Car Series for the winter 25-26 season. And what a great circuit it is to be here for the opening round. What a layout. Of course, we're running without the Britain chicane today, which means that we have a long, fast run down the back straight here, which means that we're going to get some side-by-side action. We're going to get some good overtaking opportunities into some heavy braking zones. It is going to be an absolutely fantastic one and a great season to get yourself involved with as well. Yes, this series is being run by Lame Sheep Racing. However, for this particular winter series, you do not even have to be a part of the league, part of the company to be able to join this league. So be sure to head down onto the track with these guys, get involved in the racing over in the Discord, and get on track for next week, where we will be heading across to Donington Park, a circuit that I have loathed since the beginning of time. It's a circuit I can never get to grips on. I can never get my handle on it. But luckily for me, I'm not the one who's going to be racing it. It is going to be the drivers going down on track today. And it's going to be the drivers going on track today who are dealing with the Oulton Park circuit today. I put in a few laps of the Oulton Park circuit earlier on. I thought, do you know what? I'm feeling pretty quick here. I've only just got into the TCRs myself, but I thought, do you know what? I'm driving this car really well, and I was like, yes, I'm getting in a 1:43.3. What lucky laps am I putting in here? No, apparently not. It's a 1:40.1 is currently fastest in this practice session, and that is by Ronald de Jong. But before we look too much at today's events, let's have a little bit of a look at the upcoming races in this winter series. Then it runs all the way through to the end of January in 2026, with a short break, of course, for the festival season. So Oulton Park here today without the British chicane. As I mentioned, we will be returning to Oulton Park later in the season. Next week we head across to Donington Park, running the national layout there. And then we head across to Snetterton for the third week in the series. Thruxton comes up on to the calendar for week number 4, and what a brilliant circuit that is. One of my favourite British circuits outside of what it will be week number 6 here. Oulton Park, we return in the 5th week of competition. We run the island circuit here, so instead of doing the full left-hander into the hairpin, we just cut it off where the Britain chicane is now. We'll be coming on the circuit just after that. Then we will be going across to Knockhill for the 6th week of competition. My favourite circuit, hands down, my favourite circuit, not just in Britain, but in the entire world. Knockhill is right up there for me, and I cannot wait to see these TCR machines going around that circuit in just as hard and heavy as they do in the real world. We then head across to Brands Hatch for the first time in the series, and that will be at week number 7. We go to the Indy circuit, and that will end our run in 2025. What a fantastic circuit to end on before we head into the festivities. We return back at the beginning of January 4th. We are back at the Silverstone circuit, the national layout of all the layouts at Silverstone. Hands down my favourite layout of them all, and classic touring car layout as well. They have run the international layout, of course, in the past, but that national layout, that screams touring car, so I can't wait to see how we get going on the 8th week of competition. We return to Donington Park after 8 weeks away from it. We return for the GP layout on the 9th week of this series, and the 10th and final week of the series, we head to the classic end for the touring cars It's going to be Brands Hatch. It's going to be the GP layout. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. That'll be on January 18th. So as you can see, we have got 3 months of amazing competition coming your way. And what that also means is that we have 3 months of amazing competition that you can get down on track and join into as well. Practice coming up towards the end here. We've got 5 more minutes before we focus again on qualifying, which will be coming around. That'll be about a 10-minute session for these drivers to try and get the best lap time they possibly can. I believe they've got about 12 laps to do that. They won't get to the 12-lap limit, of course, with how long there is to get around this lap. But this lap itself then here at Oulton Park, 2.69 miles, 17 turns, 8 to the left and 9 to the right. It is L1. Again, I think that when you look at the British racing circuits, you just want to say it's a classic almost every single time, because almost every single time you go to a British racing circuit, it is a classic. Yes, Silverstone is your classic. Brands Hatch is your classic. But then you've got Oulton Park, a brilliant circuit. It produces amazing racing in all types of series, including the British touring cars in real life, including the British superbikes, including the British GT. No matter what cars you put on this circuit, it produces fantastic racing. So I cannot wait for that one. And I want to thank, before we get going, our sponsor for today's event. It is the Fuzzingfield Oily Rag Club. So thank you so much for sponsoring today's event. Be sure to check out their Simex 2025, their virtual racing car show, for more information and to get your tickets. Go to www.forc.org.uk. So, we're coming up towards the end of practice here. If you want to know a little bit more about this series, which I'm sure you will do, drivers get 30 minutes of practicing to get into the server, to get themselves used to the machines before they head away for what will be 10 minutes of open qualifying. Open qualifying, of course, it does mean you can benefit from getting the tow from the drivers around you. It also means that you can severely lose out by getting held up by the drivers around you. So finding your space on the circuit is incredibly important. These open qualifying sessions, my absolute favorite for getting the cars down onto the track. Once we have set the grid, though, we're going to be following a 3 12-minute or 12 laps races, whichever one comes first. Around the Oulton Park circuit, it will be 12 minutes that will come first. But of course, when we head across to the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, well, that lap is less than a minute long, so we will go to 12 laps there. So just so you know how it's going to run here. Very short races, very quick, and it means that all of the competition is going to happen straight away. It's going to be all in it to win it straight away. So, like I said, it's a nice, quick evening for all of you out there. So if you're not able to commit to long races and a whole evening's worth out on the iRacing surface, then make sure that you get involved in this series, because they're nice, quick and snappy, so you can get in and get racing straight away. Third race of the day today is going to be set by the results of race number 2. However, it is going to be a complete reverse grid, so our winning driver will have to try and fight their way through to the front of the field from the back of the grid. And you can just see the overview here at Oulton Park. It is a fantastic circuit indeed as these drivers come around for their final laps in practice. It is Ronald de Jong who is the fastest in this session right now. He's got a best lap time of a 1:40.1. That's 0.3 quicker than Paul Tipner, who sits right now in second position. Hayden Ahmed sits in third right now with a 40.8. So the top 5 drivers all separated by a second right now, with Scott Malcolm sitting in 5th, a 41.0, and no driver is more than half a second away from the driver in front of them, from those that have put lap times in at the moment. 9 drivers with lap times on the board, 12 drivers preparing themselves away for the racing today. It is going to be an absolutely great one, as it always is. one of the things with this series, of course, we're looking at the weather, and we are here in Britain. What does that mean? It means this lovely weather that we see right now, it's not commonplace. Oh no, we are going to be seeing a flurry of different weathers as we go through this series, which means, as the league organizer has put in the briefing document for the series, make sure that you have got your wet tyres ready, because they are going to be needed throughout this series, as the rain will suddenly appear and could last for quite a substantial amount of time. Mixed conditions throughout the course of this series, of course. But we're here at Little Budworth right now, where the Oulton Park circuit is located. It's a nice sunny 19 degrees Celsius. It is nice and warm. 20 degrees on track temperature as this practice session comes to a close. Will it maintain as we go into our first qualifying session of the season? As we are just waiting it for tick across, I'm keeping an eye on the weather here to see what is going to happen. And a lovely 34 degrees Celsius track temperature. But I mean, it does mean it is actually going to be quite hot out there. So drivers are going to need to do to have a good job at getting around without too many issues on such a hot circuit. However, drivers are now heading out of pit lane for the first time in qualifying this series. This is Ronald de Jong. He was the fastest man in practice. Will he be the fastest man here in qualifying? We ride on board here for the first time in the league, running on board with de Jong. He sits right now going through the hairpin. He was the fastest in practice. Can he replicate that during this qualifying session? A few names dropping through and coming out of pits. It looks like most drivers out of the pits at the moment, trying to find any space that they can on the grid. If we're able to, let's get ourselves oh, beautiful there, black, but that's where all the drivers are at least. I don't know which one's which, but at least we know where the drivers are. And right now, it looks like most drivers have found themselves into a space around, which is good news for them. But obviously, they're not going to want to drop too far off. If they can get a little bit of a tow, it'll be nice for them. Getting held up, though, will not. Only 10 minutes in this session, which means drivers aren't going to want to do multiple outlaps. They're just going to want to get out and go for it. And that's exactly what Ronald de Jong is doing here. He heads past our cameras there and on to the start of our lap around Oulton Park. Through turn number 1, he's going to tuck towards the inside, get that curve in. You can hear him ride it a little bit. Get slightly onto the grass on the outside. Very easy to run off the circuit there at turn number 1. Get it onto the grass, invalidate your lap. Sticks it to the right-hand side. Now the swooping left-hander. Try and get it to that inside apex. Again, so easy to get pulled out really wide there. But Ronald de Jong does not do that, and he is going to continue up now. This is going to be the long left-hander. Very easy to throw it into the gravel on the outside and into the wall when you're running side by side. Not running side by side here in qualifying means you can get through it nice and simply. Braking zone was good for the hairpin there. Here is the chicane that we are skipping today. We're going to go straight past it, give it a little wave, but we're not going to take a trip down it right now. We're going to head over to our next braking point, which is where our Foster's layout joins on, of course. This chicane will be included in the international layout that we're, in the island layout that we run later on in the season. Over the hill now and under the Advan Bridge. Pushes it to the right-hand side. Now, this is very easy to get your braking point wrong here. Very easy to lock up if you're not careful, but just smooth running from de Jong right now as he heads up towards the last braking point on the lap. This is an overtaking opportunity in the race if you are brave enough, but it really does require you to be brave enough. In qualifying, it's just about getting your line right on the exit. As you see, some cars have made it onto the grass. You don't want to do that. It will invalidate your lap. But here comes de Jong across the line. He will be the first man across the line and therefore will take the fastest lap so far. But that does not mean he will remain there. In fact, the driver behind of Johansson has just gone quicker. So now David Johansson is looking like the fastest man out there right now. Let's get our timing line as Dan Mould goes even faster at the very top. Paisley Knight goes in. He gets into 5th position right now. Matt Neal's just started his own flying lap now. Now that is really risky because that could be an invalidated lap already out of turn number 1, touching that grass. So easy to do and so quick to invalidate your lap as well. Again onto the grass, and again I think it's just too far for Matt Neal to get this lap valid. Jan Mild comes out of the final turn in the number 24 machine, comes up towards the timing line now and heads towards turn number 1. Just taking it easy at the moment. You can hear just not putting too much throttle on, just coasting through turn 1, not pushing to the edge of the circuit. Just getting used to it at the moment. 5 more minutes in this session. Drivers are going to want to get a move on if they want to find themselves up the order. 7 drivers with times on the board right now. This is Pete Paver. He is yet to get a lap time on the board. He's sitting in, I believe this is the Hyundai Elantra, if I'm not mistaken. However, I don't have the cars printouts in front of me this week. I will get that for next week. As Ronald de Jong now goes faster, but look at your top 3 drivers. De Jong, Mould, Johansson, separated by just a hair right now, as this is Hayden Ahmed without a lap time. Dan Mould now goes to the front and finds a significant amount of time over de Jong and Johansson. So where it was just a hair, he has come on in and thrown an entire brush at it. He's decided he is going to pull away on that provisional pole position slot. Doesn't mean that he is going to stay there, of course. He's got a nice toe up ahead of him here. That could be pulling him along on these straights, which has allowed him to find the time and get his way onto the provisional pole position spot. There's a bit of a gap between Johnson and Titmer. When I say a bit, it's about 9/10 of a second right now, which means your leading 3 drivers are looking clear out the front if they can keep it this way. 3.5 minutes left on the qualifying time as Hayden Ahmed looks like he moves into 4th position, finds a 10th on Paul Titmer's time, and will now go onto the 2nd row of the grid. So Ahmed will be enjoying that position right now. Dan Mould heading around, looking to beat the 39.4. It is a hard one to beat, however, but he is looking to be relatively on pace to his previous laps right now, whereas de Jong and Johansson looking like they're a little bit down. Jan Mild is finding time right now. We caught on board with, well, we looked at Mild when it going pretty slowly, but is finding time at the moment. Will Mould find time through the final corner? It is an off track for Mould through that final corner, so that will not be. This is Jan Mild, has found a bit of pace here. We're going to ride on board through the chicane. We can just hear the engines roaring. They just sound fantastic. And I got to yell over the top of them as we go over the hill here. Brilliant stuff. As Jan Mild gets to the back end of the course, looking to improve on the 41.398 right now. Up to the final turn. Let's see if Jan Mild is able to find that time. Has got a driver just behind. D-Rose goes into 7th place. Mild falling to 8th, but looking like Mild could find a little bit of time right now across the timing line. It's a 41.0, 3/10 of a second found for Mild, and that puts Mild back into 7th position. Only a 10th of Malcolm now. Dan Mould continues to hold the lead ahead of de Jong. This is Johansson at the moment. Can Johansson do anything to find time, not just past Mould, but to get onto the front row of the grid? Only about a 10th of a second is needed to get Ronald de Jong and to move Johansson back onto the front row of the grid. We come across the timing line with 1 minute 20 on the board. Next lap, the lap that Johnson's just gone on to, Johansson, just gone on to, will be their last lap to push. It was a 40.1 last lap. That's not going to be good enough, but this is going to be one last push lap from Johansson here. Let's see what we can do. Dan Mould finds even more time at the end of the session. A 39.350 for Dan Mould. We're going to head onto the brakes here, get it across to the apex, does nicely. Johansson needs to find less than a tenth of a second to get past De Jong, has to find almost half a second to get past Dan Mould. Will that be found? Looking right now, the pace went purple for just a moment from Johansson. Could be finding a little bit of time here. Got to get the exit right though if he wants to keep up the speed towards the end of the lap. Right now, with this pace, it does look Johansson could get past De Jong, but it doesn't mean he can get past Dan Mould. It will be close though as we head up towards the final turn. Well, I say it's the final turn, it's not, but that was a off track from Johansson, I believe. And that is the end of the session nonetheless. We are going to get ourselves started then for race number 1 of the day. Let's have a look then at how this grid is going to start. Dan Mould is going to start from pole position ahead of Ronald de Jong. David Johansson will start from 3rd ahead of Ahmed. Titma will take 5th ahead of Scott Malcolm. Mild will take 7th ahead of Theros, ahead of Paisley Knight, Gregory Speakman, Pete Pavia, and Matt Neal. And that will be our grid for race number 1 with 12 minutes on the board. That is going to approximate about 8 laps here, which means that all of our drivers will have an opportunity to get around, move themselves through the field, and potentially take the first win of the season. Dan Mould is in the absolute driving seat to do that, though. He starts at the very front. Ronald de Jong starting alongside. Obviously, it is an outside line, an inside line start if you are in 2nd position, which means if you can get a good enough launch, you could get to the inside of Dan Mould heading up towards turn number 1. So will Ronald de Jong be able to do that? That is the question here as we wait for the last of our drivers to grid. There they are. We prepare ourselves for 12 minutes of racing. Dan Mould from pole position. The engines are roaring. The lights out and we are green here. A couple of drivers with bad launches on the right-hand side of the grid, left-hand side of our screen. As drivers try to filter past, they certainly have it. It is side by side at the front, but de Jong gets the inside of Johansson. Hayden Ahmed got a really slow launch. He's down to 10th position off the start here, but this is the podium lot. These are the drivers that found so much speed over the rest of the field as they come through the opening part of the lap. Onto the grass was de Jong. Here comes Johansson to look up the inside. They're side by side for 2nd place. Through goes Johansson. He moves into 2nd and de Jong has to settle down for 3rd place. Paul Tipner sits behind him 4th after getting past Ahmed with his slow start. Ahmed's actually fallen all the way to the rear of the field right now, but Dan Mould holds the way out front. He's got almost a second over the rest of the drivers. They all settle themselves down single file on the opening lap of the race, but they are going to use a tow here to try and pull themselves up, potentially find themselves some nice positions if they can. At the moment, it's Tipner on the back of de Jong. That could be unsettling de Jong. De Jong starting from the front row of the grid. He's lost that position to Johansson at the start. Will he lose more positions to this driver, Tipner, just behind? At the moment, we go through towards the end of the lap. 1 lap of 8 is going to be done and dusted here at Oulton Park, and it looks like Dan Mould is going to be the driver who is first across the line to take that. Ahmed dropping to the back of the field at the start of the race. We've got Pete Paver just up in front of them. Will be trying to get through and regain some positions here. This could be an overtaking opportunity in towards turn number 1. Matt Neal at the inside of Jan Mild. There's contact.
Mild slightly sideways, holds it, however, that was Ahmed onto the grass, sorry, that was Paver onto the grass, has to give up the position to Ahmed there. Neil allowed Mild to real settle. Paisley Knight took full advantage of that and moved back through. Back up towards the front though. Ronald de Jong now looking to return the favour to Johansson of what Johansson did on the opening lap of the race and tried to get back through and move back into second position. Just 0.2 of a second behind right now. Moves to the left-hand side. It is going to be the wider line on entrance, but it's going to be a huge amount of overlap, and Johansson backs out of that one, does not want to go side by side into the chicane. It is a deadly place to go side by side. You touch those tyre barriers and it is all going to go wrong for you. Off the circuit, Matt Neal made the overtake on Paisley Knight but couldn't keep it on track. Does defend from Pete Paver but moves down to 11th position. Let's see if we can see what happened here to Matt Neal. Neal then on the outside of Paisley Knight, looking to go the long way round, and unfortunately found the extreme long way round, which was on the grass. Covering for now though, but here we go, up towards the final turn and through it. That was de Jong on the outside of Johansson as Johansson moves back into second position. Dan Mould pulling away out front. Let's see if we can get a quick replay of this move. Here goes Johansson to the inside through the final braking point on the lap, and a nice move done. De Jong is going to have to try and get back through in a moment's time if he is able to. 0.4 of a second separate the two right now. Just behind though is Scott Malcolm and Paul Titmer. Malcolm on the left hand side of the circuit and will get the overlap done, get the move done before we even head in towards the next braking point. Scott Malcolm now up to 4th position. Titmer down to 5th right now. John Mild, after going slightly sideways after contact with Matt Neal at turn number 1, does put himself in 8th position right now, closing up towards Theros. A little bit slow through the hairpin, however, and has lost that time that was previously gained. Up front, Paul Titmer losing off the back of Malcolm just a little bit here. Matt Neal has got back onto the rear of Paisley Knight. Paisley Knight being the driver that Neal tried to get through earlier and ran off the circuit. Will Neal be able to make the overtake this time as we head on to the 4th lap of asking of 8 here with the 12-minute timer? Neal right behind Paisley Knight. That was Ahmed kicking up just a little bit of grass up ahead there. We head on towards the braking zone, and that is a wobble from the back of Neal. Almost playing up the inside of Paisley Knight whether he wanted to or not, but settles down for now and will have to once again just find a little bit of pace to close that increasing gap once more. Dan Mould has found 3.5 seconds ahead of Johansson right now out front. De Jong has fallen to 2 seconds behind Johansson, so this is a real opportunity now for the podium to settle themselves down and take 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the first race of the season. At the moment we watch Paul Titmer following behind Scott Malcolm, 6/10 between them. In fact, just behind, Mild has once again closed up towards Theros here. Theros gets onto the grass just a little bit. It's not going to have been an off track, however, actually it was an off track, but it was also going to compromise the exit here. Jan Mild looks to the right hand side, which would be the inside, has to back out of it though, just not close enough to make that move right now. Mild, however, knowing they are running faster than Theros at this point in the race, and has been doing so for the last few laps, just needs to find the way through when it opens up for them. Paul Titmer though, still chasing down Scott Malcolm. That was Gregory Speakman off the circuit onto the grass, has to find his way back through and does, as that is Mild looking around the outside of Theros as that all happened. and it didn't quite turn into an overtake, but Mild taking full advantage of the issues around, now to the outside here. Zeros gets the inside, Mild going for the switchback. That's going to be on the glass though. That could potentially be a slowdown at that position. However, Mild continuing to run fast, continuing to look to the inside of Zeros down the hill. Can't get to the inside again, and does have Hayden Ahmed just behind at the moment. Ahmed obviously starting this race on the second row of the grid, falling to the back of the field with a slow start. Now on a recovery drive, looking to get up to 7th position if possible. Nico Steros in 6th position, holding on ahead of Jan Mild at the moment. But these three drivers are competing it out right now for 6th place if they can. To the inside goes Hayden Ahmed. It's going to be a move. They are side by side, no contact, they keep it clean, but Ahmed remains up the inside of Mild. There is going to be contact on the exit. Mild slightly sideways, gets it back on circuit though. That was going to be inevitable, but Jan Mild falls behind Hayden Ahmed. Ahmed up to 7th, and now Paisley Knight is looking to get involved in this train and get past Jan Mild as well. Mild, just an unfortunate little bit of contact that was inevitable in that position when they're running side by side. This continues to be the battle for 4th position. Scott Malcolm leading Paul Titmer as they head up towards turn number 1. Johansson looking like the fastest man on track right now. He's got a 39.3 last lap. That's 2 tenths of a second faster than Dan Mould's best lap of the race, but it just isn't going to be enough at that pace to close down what is a 4-second deficit. De Jong also 4 seconds behind Johansson right now. This fight for 4th position, is a couple of seconds back off of that. And right now, Titmer's just had to pull back off of Malcolm once more. 6 tenths between the two of them as we are coming around on what will be the 6th of 8 laps in this race. In fact, with the timer now coming towards a close, that is the 12-lap limit. Let's see if we can figure this out and get it to the 8 laps. There we go. We can figure it out. I knew I would. I'm proud of myself. As we go through the chicane, once again, Titmer's on the back of Malcolm here, right behind. As we head up and over the hill, can Titmer find a way through? Moves to the right-hand side of the circuit. There's no space there. It won't turn to the inside just yet, but pushing hard, the two Hondas together up towards the end of the lap right now. They're fighting for the last position off of the podium, well, the first position off the podium, should I say, for 4th. Back behind them though, Hayden Ahmed still looking to recover off of the poor start, is trying now to get past Nico Steros if he is able to. Up towards turn number 1, Steros goes defensive all the way to the right hand side of the circuit. Ahmed moves to the left, will have to do this around the outside if he wants to make the move now. He keeps it in there, he's got a wheel in, he's got his whole body in, and now he is solidly alongside. He'll get the inside line. Theros tried to turn in, but there was a Hayden Ahmed right where he wanted to go. Hayden Ahmed moves back into 6th position right now. An excellent recovery from the start. It's side by side behind though, as Jan Mild finally goes for the move on Theros, but there's contact behind. Just avoiding Mild and Theros. They get out of the corner. Mild comes out ahead of Theros, who was off the circuit. I think Paisley Knight was involved in that one with Matt Neal. It looks like that's how this one played out right now behind the rest of the field. We are watching Paisley Knight. He's to the inside here. Behind is Matt Neal. Neal looks to the inside, and there's just a bit contact as Paisley Knight moves to the right-hand side and just squeezes Neal there. Both of them off the circuit and into the gravel. Luckily, neither of them picking up any damage in that race, and they can continue as here goes Malcolm to recover because Titmer has made the move past. Paul Titmer has got through past Scott Malcolm, and I'm trying to see where that has happened. As Graham goes out the inside once more, Scott Malcolm looking to try and regain that position and can't quite do it. It was about when that accident happened behind. Here comes Paul Titmer. Titmer's behind Scott Malcolm at this point in the race, and it is going to be slipstream up towards the chicane, moves to the right-hand side and will just plant the car up the inside. Malcolm's not going to be able to do much on that outside line. Tries to hold it through the inside, but once again it will switch back in Titmer's favour. But before Titmer even gets to the turn, he has made that position through. So right now, Paul Titmer remains in 4th position. Scott Malcolm in 5th. Hayden Ahmed has recovered from a poor start that sent him all the way to the back of the field. He's up to 6th now. Jan Mile doing a great job to hold on to 7th with everything going on around. And Matt Neal and James Paisley Knight just getting into a couple of incidents as the race has gone on. We are on the last lap of the race, and it is this man here who has just been dominant. Johansson has found time towards the end of the race, has closed up about a second in the last few laps. However, Dan Mould is going to come across the line, lights flashing, to win the first race of the day and the first round of the season. A great job for Dan Mould there. Johansson will take home 2nd place behind. De Jong will come home just in 3rd position. Paul Titmer will come home 4th ahead of Scott Malcolm. Hayden Ahmed will cross the line in 6th position ahead of Jan Mild. Fights behind Matt Neal and Gregory Speakman are going to be side by side out of the final turn, but Nick Theros takes 8th. Matt Neal will take 9th ahead of Gregory Speakman in 10th. And James Paisley will take 11th place. No, Speakman dropping down takes 11th here. James Paisley will take 10th. And Pete Paver will take home the last position on the field there. What a great race that was for the first race of the day. And we are going to prepare ourselves for the second race of the day now as we look at the grid for race number 2. It is going to be Dan Mould who starts race number 2 on pole position ahead of David Johansson. De Jong will start in 3rd ahead of Paul Titmer. Scott Malcolm will start in 5th, and Hayden Ahmed, recovering there, will start this one in 6th position. 7th position will be Jan Mild ahead of Nikos Therios. Matt Neal will start in 9th, James Paisley Knight in 10th. It will be Gregory Speakman from 11th, and Pete Paver will take home the last space on the grid. We prepare ourselves then for the second race of the day. 8 laps on the board. We are green. We are away here for race number 2 as we head towards turn number 1. Dan Mould once again leading the field. Johansson right on the rear this time, however, and will be looking to try and find a way through. In the early stages of this race, we knew that Johansson had some speed because he was pulling back the gap as the race continued on. But right now, Dan Mould just holds out the lead as the drivers behind try to get him through. This is Matt Neal. Matt Neal running side by side with Therios here, looking to the inside. Of Mild. That was up the inside of Mild. And will make that move past Matt Neal up to 6th position here. A great launch. Therios trying to get the inside of Jan Mild there. A little bit of a lock-up. A bit of an adventurous move. It wasn't going to play out. Titmer looking to get past Ronald de Jong here for 3rd position, and through goes Paul Titmer. Titmer now on to the podium places. De Jong will be wanting that back. Scott Malcolm's just behind, will want to get involved in this fight as well out the front and try to get back try to get onto the podium. That looked like it would be a lockout after the qualifying results, but not so much now. De Jong overtaken by Titmer. This is the front of the field. Mould leading Johansson. 0.3 of a second separate them at the moment as they head up towards the final turn on the circuit. And once again, they've all settled themselves down into a single file line here on the opening lap. But that does not mean none of them want to go racing. We saw a lot of racing happening in the first race of the day. We're going to see a lot of racing happening in this race as well. We head up towards the first turn. De Jong looks up the inside of Titma just a little bit, won't turn into anything in this early stage of the race, just a bit too far away to really make anything work. However, we are going to have a look at where everyone stands on the field. And at the moment, Hayden Ahmed, after a great recovery drive in race number 1, has once again fallen to the rear of the field ahead of only Pete Paver here, and will have to try and recover back towards the top 5 for a second race in a row. Of course, race number 3 is going to be a full reverse sprint for those drivers towards the back right now, and towards the end of this race haven't got too much to worry about, because race number 3 will go their way. Let's have a look then towards the front, because Johansson, it looks just for a moment up the inside of Dan Mould. It won't turn into anything, but Mould running a slightly tighter line there, to the point it's going to compromise the speed on the exit. Johansson is going to try and get the faster line out. It opened up for just a moment, the gap between the two of them, but it's closing down once more here. You can see they're already pulling away from the rest of the field. 2 seconds back to Paul Titma right now, who takes the final podium place ahead of Ronald de Jong. Up towards the final turn here, not going to be anything, but Ronald de Jong looking to try and regain the podium place. Hayden Ahmed gets past Gregory Speakman down in 10th position. Stuck on the outside though, and Speakman gets back through. They run side by side up towards turn number 1. Gregory Speakman's going to have to force Hayden Ahmed on the outside line. It's worked out for Ahmed before, it's going to work out again. Through goes Hayden Ahmed. Speakman's speed on the exit compromise, and here comes Pete Paver. If Paver can make it now to the inside, tries to do it, as Speakman on a slightly wider line touches the grass there, and through goes Pete Paver as de Jong, and the lead changes as well, as that's race 1 winner Dan Mould off the circuit and out of the race. Paul Titma got overtaken by de Jong at the same time as well. Let's see if we can figure out what just happened there. This is Mould leading Johansson at the front of the field. Is it just a single car mistake over the curbing and lost the rear end? A huge kiss on the barrier, and once again at the end barrier. I wondered why he wasn't continuing to race, and that would be why. Let's see what happened here, if we can find out. This is how de Jong got past Titma. You can see de Jong to the left hand side, just speed on the exit, will take the inside line as well. They ran side by side, the accident happening ahead, and at that point de Jong is already through and past. A great opportunity there from de Jong to move his way back onto the podium. It has turned into second, and Paul Titma remains in 3rd place. Dan Mould down pit lane and will be out with a meatball flag. A shame for Mould in this race, which was going his way once more. Johansson, however, now the fastest man out on track, and was looking like the fastest in the first race as well. As we head now up towards where we saw Dan Mould head off the circuit. This is James Pacey Knight leading Hayden Ahmed. Ahmed, once again in a recovery drive, falling to the rear of the field at the beginning. I'm not sure how that actually happened at the start of the race. I'm trying to see here if we can find out what happened at the start of the race to Hayden Ahmed. In fact, we can. This is the race start. Hayden Ahmed off of the line. That black car in the middle of our screen. It's green, and is it just another slow launch for Ahmed? It is. It's just another slow launch for Hayden Ahmed that just pulls him all the way down the field. Needing to get used to how these cars behave on the launch, obviously there from Hayden Ahmed, because it was the same issue that made Ahmed fall to the back of the field in the first race. Of course, Dan Mould, if the reverse grid does in fact mean the entire field and it counts drivers down and out of the race, will that place Dan Mould on pole position for the third and final race, or will he not be included in the reverse grid? That's a question I need to find out, and we will find the answer out to that in about 4 laps time. Right now, however, it is Paul Titmer in third position, trying to keep up with De Jong and doing a good job in doing so. Only half a second between them right now. De Jong 0.4 of a second off of Johansson. Hayden Ahmed behind teammate James Paisley Knight here through the hairpin. Is Ahmed going to make the move this time? Paisley Knight moves to the right hand side. Ahmed's going to get the speed and go through. That was definitely some team orders in play there, and through goes Hayden, as that is Jan Mild and Matt Neal making moves there. That's Deros. Possibly issues for Deros here, no? But this is the overtake then between Matt Neal and Jan Mild, because they certainly swapped positions. And I think they swapped positions momentarily before that as well. So Matt Neal in that multicoloured car up ahead, Jan Mild just behind, and that's what happened there. So a slight momentary disconnect from Matt Neal. But here comes Deros. He's on the inside, Hayden Ahmed on the outside. Ahmed wants to try and make this move, and Johansson goes purple once more. Deros wanting to defend this 7th place here. Hayden Ahmed wanting to recover from yet another poor launch. 3 laps to go. Ahmed to the outside will give the speed on the exit at wider line. Switches across to the right. That is going to be now Deros on the left-hand side of the circuit. Will be the inside line. Ahmed going to try and carry the speed on the outside. They remain side by side. Nick Deros holds on to 7th place. Hayden Ahmed tucks in behind for 8th, and that is James Paisley Knight trying his hardest to get involved and potentially help his teammate out here as well. But they are going to settle in once more onto the breaking point at the hairpin, with Ahmed behind Deros and Paisley Knight chugging on just behind. That was Mild and Neal just up ahead. They're close together as well. Neal goes to the right hand side. Mild goes to the left. It will be the outside line. The harder line to make this move is side by side behind as well, as just Mild can't keep the nose in there. Ahmed though is going to keep the nose in there, but it will be the inside line for Deros. There's contact. Deros holds position. Ahmed down, but here comes Paisley Knight. Deros definitely moved significantly more to the left than he should have there, but Paisley Knight is going to come back and avenge his teammate here up the inside to take 7th position off of Nico Deros, and through he goes. Battle for 5th once more, and Jan Miles to the inside of Matt Neal. That line's not going to work out. Deros now once again under attack by Ahmed. Ahmed gets through, and with a bit of a nudge as well. Ahmed just saying, you can do it, well I can do it too. A bit of a wobble there, going defensive. Here comes Deros on the outside line of Hayden Ahmed. Hayden Ahmed holds that position in 8th position. Change up on the podium. Scott Malcolm has got past Paul Titmer. It looks like Titmer has had some sort of mistake here. Out of the first turn, when has this occurred? There was definitely some mistake here. Titmer was right behind De Jong and is onto the grass and straight off the circuit. Luckily for Titmer, it's only 1 position, but it is off of the podium for him. And now under attack from Matt Neal. Ahmed behind Paisley Knight. Is Paisley Knight going to make it easy this time? It's 5 seconds to the car up ahead, so I doubt it. I think Paisley Knight is going to fight Ahmed this time. No, he's not. He allows Ahmed through and up into 7th position. Paisley Knight down to 8th position. Nico Deros behind now. Will be looking to make another move through if possible. Matt Neal, however, doing a great job here in 5th position to recover. Is looking to try and get onto 4th past Paul Titmer, who visited the gravel last lap. It's going to be white flag lap next time around. It's 2.5 tenths between the two drivers as they head up towards the final turn here. And it is going to remain all in single file right now. 3 tenths per second for Matt Neal. We ride on board with Matt Neal, chasing down Paul Titmer into turn number 1 here. Slightly wider there from Neal, both of them getting the off tracks there. What you find is so easy to pick up off tracks here at Oulton Park qualifying. Made a lot harder because of that. Paul Titmer holding ahead by about 3 tenths per second on Matt Neal right now. The slipstream is going to go in Neal's way. He is going to get the toe, especially on the back half of this circuit here. Just get the hairpin correct. Get the speed on the exit. The speed on the exit goes Titmer's way. That is for sure. A great run through there. The gap up now to 8 tenths of a second. The gap at the lead is all the way up on 8 seconds right now. David Johansson inherited the lead with Dan Mould's mistake from the lead, putting Mould into the barrier. But this is going to be a win in the second race of the day for round 2. David Johansson will come through the final turn and will take the win here at Oulton Park. David Johansson wins race number 2, round number 2. Ronald de Jong will come out to take home second, and Scott Malcolm takes the podium. Paul Titmer finds just enough speed to hold on to 4th place ahead of Matt Neal and Jan Marl behind. Hayden Ahmed comes up towards the timing line to take 7th ahead of Paisley Knight. Nico Stiros takes home 9th and Gregory Speakman takes home 10th. 11th place for Pete Paver, and down and out of the race was Dan Mould. What a fantastic end to that one. And we are going to prepare ourselves for the 3rd and final race of the day. Let us very quickly get a look at how the grid is going to stand for this one. It's going to be Dan Mould ahead of Pete Paver, Gregory Speakman from 3rd ahead of Theros, Paisley Knight from 5th ahead of Ahmed. It's then Mild, Neal, Titmer, Malcolm de Jong and Johansson throughout the rest of the field. We are waiting then for the race start here. And it is, like I said, going to be Dan Mould from pole position, starting pole position in all 3 rounds of the day. Will he be able to keep it clean in this last race, though? We are going to prepare ourselves. And we are green, and we are away here, and that is an even worse launch than normal on the outside, and that was Paisley Knight. Another driver getting swallowed up into turn number 1 there. There's contact. And that was Pete Paver getting swallowed into turn 1. Contact on the inside from... Oh, there's more contact from Johansson. There was initial contact. De Jong spins Paisley Knight. Will Paisley Knight keep out of the barrier? No. Paisley Knight into the wall with a heavy hit there. And no, rear spoiler will need to visit pit lane to repair that one. Dan Mould pulls away out front ahead of Gregory Speakman, who is in 2nd now. Nico Stiros is in 3rd ahead of Matt Neal. 5th is to Jan Mard ahead of Paul Titmer. Hayden Ahmed is in 7th ahead of Scott Malcolm right now. And Paisley Knight is down and out of the race, unfortunately for him, in the final race of the day. Up towards the breaking point, a number of drivers just trying to intimidate the car ahead, swerve to the right, get back to the racing line. There's no way they're actually going to get up the inside there, just trying to let the driver in front of them know, hey, I'm here and I am willing to put my nose where it doesn't belong. As we now head up towards the last few corners on the opening lap of 8 here in the 3rd and final race of the day. We head up towards the final turn, and that is Matt Neal looking to try and get onto the podium here. Neal has had some unfortunate luck. Race number 1 not going Neal's way at all. will be hoping race number 3 does go his way here. He is on the back of Deros for that podium spot. We know how defensive Nico Deros drives though, and it could be a hard spot to get through. However, right now, apart from Dan Mould pulling a nice gap out in the lead, it is pretty close between him and between Speakman, in second, and the rest of the field. Neil looking up the inside of Theros there. Again, it's not going to turn into anything, but again, just puts it up the inside, trying to scare Theros into some mistake. There was a little bit of lock-up through the hairpins. The mistake certainly did happen, but not enough to take advantage of. This is Paul Titmer in the 161 machine, trying to get past Jan Mild on the outside in the 24, up towards the breaking point. Titmer's up the inside here, but he's going to have to really push for it. Gets up the inside of Neil as well. There's contact. Neil's off the circuit, and the gaggle of cars behind goes through. But Matt Neil caught up in that one with a dive attempt from who was it from again? I lost it already. A huge hit into the wall. That's Scott Malcolm. Massive hit for the 74 into the wall and down and out of this one. Once we get it all settled down, we will jump back and see if we can figure out what occurred at the chicane and what occurred after the chicane here. Dan Mould, fastest man out on track, 3 seconds clear of Gregory Speakman, who holds on to second ahead of Nico Steros here. We knew the reverse grid was going to cause issues, but right now, Pacey Knight, Scott Malcolm, both drivers out of the race. The top 10 remain, and as they do, it looks like they have settled it down. Let's see if we can figure out what happened here. Onto the brakes, and you can just see there a big dive up the inside from Paul Titmer. A little bit of a touch. Matt Neal off the circuit. And then this is what happened to Scott Malcolm here. Up. And a nudge behind. Who was that nudged him? I think that was Johansson. Was it De Jong? It was De Jong. Ronald De Jong was the driver that nudged there. As Ahmed and Titmer get past Theros. Theros falling down the order here. Issues for Theros on the middle part of the lap, and that's what's happened there. Theros has completely gone off the circuit. That's going to have been a major slowdown. And some proper issues for Theros. Places Jan Mild, the driver, in third position right now, ahead of Hayden Ahmed. Mild and Ahmed are going to go at it for third, and we know how much Ahmed will push for positions. And will he do so now? We go across the line once again. Mould putting in the fast lap now. 5 seconds clear over the rest of the field. And we're not even halfway through this race. We're watching Hayden Ahmed here chase down Jan Mild off the circuit in the background. That was Pete Paver. But this fight for 4th place does go all the way towards the back of the drivers still in the race. That's what's crazy here. Here comes Ahmed to the inside of Jan Mild. They run side by side. Ahmed takes that position and Mild just tucks behind. Gonna have to deal with it for now off the circuit. Just momentarily was Matt Neal, but he holds it together and doesn't get into too bad a shape. This is Johansson behind Theros now. Theros running off the circuit here last lap, but will still be trying to go defensive at any position he can hold. Johansson is going to go aggressive on any position he can look up the inside. Tries through the chicane to slow Theros down. Backs out of it early to try and get the speed on the exit. It doesn't quite go the way that Johansson planned there, but a really good opportunity and a really good learning chance there in this halfway stage of the race. Johansson looks to the inside of Theros and makes that move stick. Theros just closed the door on Ronald De Jong there. De Jong is going to now be under attack from Matt Neal. Matt Neal gets to the inside for 8th place, will turn just enough to avoid contact with Deros, but it is going to be a slow exit. And De Jong will return to 8th place and hold that position for now. But De Jong is going to be wanting to move past Deros as well. Johansson able to do it last lap. Will De Jong be able to make that move this time around? Heading now on to the straight after turn number 3, and we are going to see if there is going to be any opportunity towards this part of the field once more. 4 laps to go. We're only halfway through this final race of the day. 2 drivers down and out of it after crashes. Pacey Knight on the opening lap of the race, got Malcolm on lap 3, but this right now is Paul Titmer all over the rear of Jan Mild. Ahmed holding on to 3rd position right now. Titmer looks to the inside of Mild. Isn't going to do anything there. Could go for it on the exit though. It's interesting that the off-track sort of dirt is on the circuit at that point on the track. But we continue to watch Paul Titmer, 0.2 of a second off of the back of Jan Mild now. Mild has had a bit of... Oh, that's the car off! That is Gregory Speakman down and around, and that has caused Paul Titmer an opportunity to get past Mild, and here comes Johansson as well to get past Mild up the inside and makes that move. What happened to Gregory Speakman from 2nd position on the grid? Second position in the race, full advantage on the reverse grid, just a touch on the grass, unfortunately gets off the circuit, slams on the brakes off the circuit as well, so it doesn't involve anyone else in that wreck. But we are 3 cars fighting it out now for 6th position. Ronald De Jong holds on to 6th, it's side by side with Neil and Deros. Neil on the left hand side of the circuit, Deros on the right, touching the grass there. Deros tries to come across. Neil is very much there, and Neil is going to take that position. Deros though, now down the position, swings back across, trying to force Neil into a mistake, can't quite do it. De Jong up to 6th, Neil up to 7th, and Nico Deros down to 8th place right now. But Paul Titmer is now back on the podium in this race. After trying really hard to get into the podium in race number 2, being beaten to it by Malcolm, it just isn't going to work out. It's De Jong. Issues for De Jong there. Has gone off track. No, that was a bit earlier on. What has happened here to De Jong as he continues to fall down positions with Nico Steros now, and he just cuts the chicane. And now trying to defend from Deros. The 2 of them were just off there. As they come up towards the final turn, they settle themselves down. That's contact. De Jong and Neil. No, sorry, that's De Jong. Who is that that's just had contact with him? No, that was De Jong who had contact with Deros. And Deros under attack from Paver. So that's what happened there as De Jong goes wide at turn number 1 on the penultimate lap of the race. Deros now under attack from Paver. Will Johansson, after getting 2nd in race number 2, starting this race from 11th, will Johansson be able to get onto the podium in this race? Paul Titmer up ahead, and looking at it, they are teammates here. And they have got Hayden Ahmed just up in front, and Ahmed is running super slow there. Potential slowdown for Ahmed, and he's had to plant it right where he didn't want to. Here comes Titmer on the outside now. The inside line that Ahmed's got is the line that you want to be on here. They're side by side. This is the battle for 2nd. Hayden Ahmed holds on to it ahead of Titmer. Johansson following behind right now. As we have some issues there, and all of our overlays disappear. Let's get them back up. Here we go. We ride on board with David Johansson. He's got Titmer ahead. Ahmed just ahead of him. up towards the final turn here. We're going on to the final lap of the race. Hayden Ahmed has got a 15-second gap ahead of him. Dan Mould has been absolutely flying around this circuit, taking the reverse grid pole after retiring from race number 2. And Dan Mould won race number 1. He will, as long as he keeps it on track, win race number 3 as well. As Johansson follows behind Hayden Ahmed, follows behind Titma here. Will they work together to get past Hayden Ahmed, or will Johansson look for 3rd position in this fight? Titma wanting that podium he lost out on in race number 2. Johansson wanting to replicate his podiums from the first 2 races. Out of the hairpin they go. Ahmed leading Titma, leading Johansson. They're just not close enough right now, but that is going to be that opportunity into the last braking point as well. Johansson moves to the right, Titma moves to the right. Titma's going to be off the racing line here into the corner, but gets it back onto the corner nice and easily. So won't lose any time there. Dan Mould, however, is going to come around the final turn for the final time today. Dan Mould, he won the first race. He retired from race number 2, but it will be a victory in race number 3 here for round number 3. The fight for the podium behind continues. Hayden Ahmed ahead of Paul Titma, ahead of Johansson. Who's going to get the better exit onto the grass for Ahmed? That's going to for Titma. That's going to invite Johansson in, but it is going to be Ahmed ahead of Titma, ahead of Johansson across the line. Another side-by-side fight between Neil and De Jong across the line for 6th and 7th. Jan Mark took home 5th, Theros took home 8th, Paver in 9th, and Speakman in 10th. Scott Malcolm and James Paisley out of the race here in the final race of the day. But that is 3 races done, 3 rounds done, and the first week of competitive action here is done. The Lame Sheep Racing's British Touring Car Series is fully underway for its winter 25-26 season. If you have enjoyed the racing you have seen today and you want to get down on track and get involved, then be sure to check them out. Get involved with the league and get involved with the races. But here it was been a fantastic evening of racing up in the broadcast booth. Let's see if we're able to get just a couple of the highlights here. We might not be able to from how long ago they happened, but I'm going to try our hardest to get into the heat race qualifier, the heat race issues if we're able to start with, because there were a few issues off the start of that race. Of course, the slow start in race number 1 today. You can see that was off the line slow from Hayden Ahmed. He got off the line slow a number of times. In fact, this was the last race of the day, not the first race of the day. It was slow off the line from Pete Paver as well. Or was that the first race of the day as well? Because that looked very, very similar to the last race of the day. But no, that is in fact how it went in the first race of the day as well. Absolutely identical the way that they occurred. This was the accident that saw Paisley Knight and Matt Neal off the circuit. Neal went to the inside of Paisley Knight. They just avoided the cars in front of them, and they managed to get it sorted. We then moved on to the second race of the day. No, this is still heat race. This is race number 1. Let's move on to the second race of the day. And off the line once again in race number 2, Hayden Ahmed just getting a slow launch. Just not getting used to the way these cars bite off the line, falling down the order. You can just see, you can just hear, how loud these cars are off the line. But a slow launch off the line there. And then from the lead of the race, Dan Mould, after winning race number 1, just his own error send him just hurtling into the barriers, down and out of that one. It was then race number 3 where we once again saw a slow start from Hayden Ahmed, but this time he was able to recover, taking second place in the race when it was all said and done. But of course we did have a number of incidents, including this one. That's Paisley Knight off the circuit at a turn number 1 and just contact there from De Jong behind. That was Knight getting back on the, that was Paisley Knight just getting back on the circuit, moving too far to the right, contact with De Jong. Nothing that De Jong could have done on that one. This was then Scott Malcolm when Malcolm went off with contact behind. There it is, a huge slam from behind, and the 74 straight into the wall and off and out. Gregory Speakman then taking full opportunity from the reverse grid, running safely in second, but throwing it away with that little bit of contact with the grass, and around and down he went to end that one. But it was Dan Mould who in the end won yet another race. 2 races on the trot for him, and a great result at the end of that one. Dan Mould, 2 wins to his name today in the opening 3 rounds. The best way to get it started, that is for sure. Well done to Dan Mould. And then of course we can't forget, well done to Johansson, who took home the win in heat race number 2. That is it here then from Oulton Park for the first week of action here in the Lame Sheep Racing's British Touring Car Series. We will be back next Sunday on November 9th for the Donington Park circuit. We head across there for the national layout, so don't miss that one. We have got a fantastic grid coming your way. And of course, we can't forget to thank our sponsor for today. We've got Fezzingfield Oily Rag Club, who are sponsoring today's event. Be sure to check out their SimX 2025 virtual racing car show for all of the information about that. And to get yourself a ticket, head across to www.forc.org.uk. But from here at Oulton Park and the virtual commentary booth of Beehive Bill Broadcasting, I hope you have enjoyed this event. I am looking forward to next week as we return around the Donington Park circuit. So thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, if you want to get involved in this league, be sure to check out Lame Sheep Racing and get yourself involved in their BTCS series. If you want to find out more about Beehive Bill Broadcasting and what we do here, then be sure to head across to www.beehivebillbroadcasting.com. If you want to support us as well, be sure to head across over to our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/@BeehiveBill. We will be posting all of our race replays over there, as well as our race highlights, so be sure to check that out and subscribe to our YouTube. Be sure to follow here on Twitch so you're notified when we go live with all of the various leagues, as well as the LSR League here today. And finally, if you really want to support us even further and make sure that we can continue to upgrade all of our equipment and bring you the best quality broadcasts to your screens, then be sure to head across to our Buy Me a Coffee link at buymeacoffee.com/@BeehiveBill. Thank you so much for watching here today, and I will see you at the next one next week at Donington Park. I hope you have enjoyed, because we certainly have. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.